In 2014, GoPro was a Silicon Valley superstar. The company's tiny action cameras were everywhere, mounted on surfboards, ski helmets, and drones, and the brand was synonymous with adrenaline-fueled adventure. GoPro commanded a staggering 67% of the global action camera market and boasted nearly $2 billion in annual revenue. Its IPO that year valued it around $10 billion, and within 4 months, the stock rocketed from $24 to $93.85. Founder and CEO Nick Woodman became a billionaire virtually overnight, hailed as the visionary who turned a surfer's idea into a household name. By 2025, however, GoPro's stock had imploded into penny stock territory, trading under $1 after a collapse of roughly 98% from its peak. Once a $10 billion juggernaut, GoPro was now worth less than a single mid-sized software startup. Even more shocking, the man at the helm, Nick Woodman, had in 1 year paid himself more money than his company now earns or is even worth. GoPro's downward spiral was so severe that by 2024, it posted an annual net loss of $432 million. At its height, GoPro seemed invincible, but decisions made during its prime sowed the seeds of its downfall. In 2014, the same year GoPro went public and posted $128 million in profits, Nick Woodman made a peculiar move. He awarded himself a stock bonus worth about $284.5 million. This windfall instantly made Woodman the highest-paid CEO in America that year. At the time, few complained openly. After all, GoPro's stock was soaring and early investors were exuberant. But this was not a good sign. Instead of plowing more resources into innovation or shoring up the company's future, Woodman's focus seemed to tilt toward cashing in on the moment. It wasn't just the bonus either. Shortly after the IPO, Woodman and his wife donated 5.8 million GoPro shares, worth roughly $500 million at the time, to their private foundation. The move was ostensibly philanthropic, but it had a convenient side effect. It allowed Woodman to sidestep the standard 180-day post-IPO lockup period and avoid capital gains taxes. Investors were furious. To them, it looked like the founder was finding loopholes to offload a stock at peak prices without waiting, all while ordinary shareholders were locked in. The CEO was securing his fortune, perhaps at the expense of long-term shareholders' interests. GoPro's success had been built on a passionate customer community and relentless product focus, but its leader was extracting enormous personal gains just as storm clouds gathered on the horizon. This was a company at its peak, and rather than double down on its strengths, it was about to veer off course in a spectacular fashion. Flush with IPO cash and media buzz, GoPro's leadership grew convinced they could evolve from a dominant camera maker into a sprawling media and hardware empire. The company went shopping for new ventures instead of focusing on what it did best. The first bet was a GoPro entertainment and media division, envisioned as a kind of Red Bull media house that would turn GoPro into a content powerhouse. Woodman poached executives from HBO and Hulu to run it, dreaming of GoPro-branded TV shows, movies, and viral video channels that would leverage the brand's daredevil image. The second bet was even flashier: the Karma drone, a sleek quadcopter designed to carry GoPro cameras into the skies and challenge drone industry leader DJI. Drones were a hot new market, and GoPro feared missing the wave. In late 2016, shortly after launch, Karma drones began falling out of the sky. A fatal battery design flaw caused drones to lose power mid-flight, sending them plummeting to Earth. During the crucial holiday season, GoPro was forced to recall the Karma en masse, an embarrassing setback. Ultimately, the drone was pulled from the market entirely, and GoPro abandoned the drone business just months after entering it. The company had sunk enormous resources into Karma, and virtually all of it went up in smoke. By the end of 2016, neither of GoPro's big expansion bets had paid off. The company had chased new horizons, and in the process, lost focus on its core mission. While GoPro was busy chasing Hollywood dreams and drone dominance, the world of personal technology advanced. In fact, the entire landscape of video capture shifted under GoPro's feet. By the mid-2010s, the average consumer suddenly found a high-quality action camera right in their pocket, the smartphone. Smartphone cameras rapidly evolved to shoot HD and even 4K video, and they had something GoPro's gadgets lacked: convenience. For truly extreme sports and unique perspectives, dedicated action cams were still king, but the addressable market was shrinking as casual users defaulted to phones for video. GoPro's core customers, surfers, skaters, adventurers, still loved the durable, mountable hero cameras, but even many of them noticed the gap was closing. When phone makers started adding features like image stabilization and water resistance, GoPro's wow factor diminished. Drone giant DJI began producing its own compact cameras and gimbals. Innovators like Insta360 pushed 360-degree video and VR-ready cameras that captured perspectives GoPro couldn't. Other electronics companies, including lower-cost Chinese brands, flooded the market with GoPro knockoffs at a fraction of the price. Crucially, content creators, the very community GoPro helped spawn, started demanding more than just hardware. They wanted better software, editing tools, and seamless ways to share videos. GoPro's cameras produced great footage, but managing that footage was often a pain. In 2015, Woodman himself acknowledged the need to develop software solutions that make it easier for our customers to offload, access, and edit their GoPro content. The GoPro experience still involved fumbling with SD cards, external apps, and time-consuming edits. Meanwhile, phone apps and social media made editing and sharing a 30-second clip a breeze. Instead of pivoting to truly solve these user needs, GoPro stuck as stubbornly to what had worked in the past, cranking out new camera models with incremental improvements in resolution or frame rate. The Hero 5, Hero 6, Hero 7, they came and went without recapturing the excitement. GoPro did make some software and cloud efforts, like the GoPro Plus subscription for cloud storage and a simplified mobile editing app, but these came slowly and didn't become game changers. The consequence of this complacency became evident as sales began to slip. People weren't upgrading their GoPros as frequently. GoPro's core fans still existed, but growth stalled. In essence, the market evolved and GoPro didn't keep up. In the fourth quarter of 2015, typically GoPro's biggest season, revenue fell 31% year over year, a shocking drop for a supposedly high-growth tech company. Unsold inventory piled up, forcing GoPro to take a $57 million write-down on excess cameras, particularly the overproduced Hero 4 session model. In early 2016, the company slashed its sales guidance by half, essentially admitting to investors that demand had collapsed. As financial results went off a cliff, GoPro scrambled to cut costs. The company began a series of mass layoffs that would see it shed hundreds of employees over the next 2 years. In January 2016, GoPro cut 7% of its workforce. In November 2016, after the media division's failure, it axed another 15%. More layoffs followed in 2017. By early 2018, after the drone debacle, GoPro announced it was exiting the drone business entirely and would reduce its staff to fewer than 1,000 employees, down from the 1,600 peak. GoPro's stock, which had already slid through 2015, spiraled downward. After peaking above $90 in 2014, the share price crashed to the teens by 2016 and single digits soon after. Investors who bought into the GoPro hype saw their holdings decimated. The company that once sported over an $11 billion valuation was now worth perhaps 1/10 of that. As of early 2025, GoPro's stock languished around 60 cents per share. In December 2016, angry shareholders filed a class action lawsuit alleging that GoPro management had misled investors about the company's health, including overstating demand and concealing problems with the Karma drone. Around the same time, business press that had once fawned over Woodman turned on him. Fox Business named Nick Woodman one of the worst CEOs of 2016 as GoPro's stock plummeted and layoffs mounted. GoPro's collapse really highlights one painful fact: the CEO prospered, but the company didn't. Woodman, who was once on the Forbes billionaires list, saw his net worth plummet along with GoPro's prospects. By 2023 to 2025, GoPro was in full survival mode. The company continued to lose money in 2024, a $432 million loss, and faced a shrinking revenue base. In a dramatic cost-cutting measure, Nick Woodman volunteered to forego his own salary for 2025 to help keep the company afloat. GoPro hoped that austerity and a refocus on its core cameras could return it to profitability by 2026, but the situation was clearly dire. GoPro's valuation implosion is a dramatic reflection of how far the company drifted from its early promise.